I want to point out that I truly support your suit against the COMELEC on the matter of early campaigning, because after all, there is supposed to be a 90-day period for national officials and a 45-day period for local officials, so that we could actually shorten the period of campaign and at the same time be able to track down all the expenses which must be reported during that period. But apparently, the COMELEC chooses to use a technicality that in as much as this is not the campaign period, anybody can do as they please. Now, prescinding from the civilians who can spend their own money, obviously, with impunity, what I cannot appreciate is the matter of impunity that you just exhibited here. Those are production costs. Isn't that correct, Your Honor?
Right.
Those are just production costs issued by the Commission on Audit. This does not include, for example, the Secretary of Tourism, that has been going on a campaign as well on national television, and as well as the GSIS and other entities of the government. Now, Your Honor, is there anything we can do apart from really, I mean, of course, the COMELEC officials can be impeached, but really on the matter of this undue advertising that is being undertaken by many, I would imagine that the Department of Tourism can advocate go to Bohol, and I wouldn't mind if the Secretary of Tourism does that. But when Secretary Duque starts talking about Duque K, it is obviously a campaign ploy already, Madam President. Or for that matter, many of the others who are conducting campaigning is obviously using it really for purposes of election in the coming days. Is there any way we can expand the law right away, or for that matter, file a case against them either for malversation or an anti-graft case, or for that matter, non-FISA or malfeasance in the performance of their duties? Would the gentle lady please guide this her fellow lawyer in this matter, Madam President, Mr. President?
This fellow lawyer is just pretending that he does not know. My concern as a lover of the Constitution is firstly, the state policy enshrined in our Constitution that the state shall provide equal opportunities for access to public service. Dapat pantay-pantay lang tayo na nabibigyan ng pagkakataon na makapagtakbo sa halalan. Paano tayo magiging pantay-pantay kung ang cabinet members nauuna na at ginagamit pa ang sarili nating pera? Di wala nang mahirap na makakatakbo kung ganun pala. Kaya magagawa natin kaagad-agad, maliban sa naturally we'll have to amend election code. Maybe we can do that if many of us return to the Senate.
But can't we do judicial statesmanship, Your Honor? Can't the Supreme Court see right through it, or the COMELEC see right through the intentions? That what you cannot do, which the law prohibits on a particular date, you cannot do beyond that date simply because, and you cannot use the excuse that it is outside. Precisely the purpose of the law was to limit the campaign period.
Opo.
And to limit campaign expenses.
Bakit pa tayo may campaign ban? Kung pwede naman pala sila mangampanya bago ng ban. Ano namang baluktot na dahilan iyan? The reasoning was this. In the election code, the term candidate is defined as a person who has filed his certificate of candidacy. No one can yet file a certificate of candidacy because it depends on the COMELEC to set the period for filing certificates. So, if no one has yet filed any certificate of candidacy, then no one is yet a candidate. According to the reasoning of my critics, then the prohibition against premature campaigning, which is punishable by disqualification from running as a candidate or from serving your term of office if you have been elected. According to my critics, because of this reasoning, then there is no premature campaigning before the period for filing certificates of candidacy. That is correct. That is one conclusion you can draw from the election code. But I also pointed out to the COMELEC that, by contrast, there is a specific provision in the election code. No person, it does not say voter or a candidate, no person shall engage in premature campaigning because that will be considered an election offense or a crime. So, between these two provisions which appear to conflict with each other, the COMELEC chose to be cowardly and instead sided with interpretation that makes it possible for politicians to violate the election code to its face by engaging in premature campaigning. That is why I can no longer criticize, for example, my fellow senators for engaging in premature campaigning because of the ruling of the COMELEC, which I have elevated to the Supreme Court. But even if the Supreme Court decides in my favor, there will be no more time because by November, we will all be required to file certificates of candidacy anyway. So, what we can do right now is we should demand from the COA during the next month's budget hearings that it should disallow these expenses because it has power to do so, and then demand from every cabinet member that it should refund the amounts that I've shown to you on the slide to the National Treasury.
That is one way. I understand that, Your Honor. But nonetheless, prescinding from the legal arguments, which I think we can argue both in the Supreme Court adequately if we want to, the fact remains is that, if I remember correctly as a younger person before, our predecessors in the Senate precisely created a campaign period precisely to limit the expenses,
Right.
to level, if you will, the playing field. Because already the playing field isn't really level, whether you like it or not, because there are obviously wealthier candidates and there are people who are what you might call have the propensity to be captured by those who own big corporations and end up with the practice of regulatory capture later on. And having said that, the bad taste in the mouth that is left upon young people that I see here around us is that kung makakalusot ka, okay lang. So much so that we have become really a palusot culture. Kung makakalusot ka, okay lang, kahit na malinaw ang objective ng batas na pinagbabawal yan, eh sige lang, basta ilusot mo ng ilusot, basta wala magko-complain, okay kung may mag-complain, kaya mong labanan sa husgado ng technicalities, then talagang unfair na talaga ang level playing field. For an example, one would have a hard time, one would really have enough, a lot of gumption to be able to address the statement made by one candidate currently, who said that if you don't have a billion, you have no business running for elective office. Is that the vision of the Constitution, Your Honor? That you have to have a lot of money, or is it really just realistic? Can you imagine an America, Your Honor, in the 50s or the 60s or even the 70s, where a person like Obama or somebody we might call an ITA in the Philippines could even think of running for president and be elected, and yet their society has managed to allow them so to do. And I think there is no intimidation insofar as that culture is concerned, because what happened was, it was basically the people who paid for the campaign, if you will, if you're to believe the Obama playbook in terms of getting election and getting elected. And that to me is something that we must always try to strive for, the ideal that this country must carry their candidates by their contributions, as they do in America, where they can deduct the salaries of employees to go to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, or perhaps a suggestion that I have made that perhaps it is the government that perhaps should pay for the candidacies of particularly the president, so that everybody will have a level playing field, and therefore their loyalty will really be thoroughly and unadulteratedly and unmitigatedly for the poor folks, so to speak.
Eh kung payamanan na rin lang pagka-presidente ng Pilipinas, bakit pa magkampanya at mamudmod ng pera? Di subasta na lang natin ang presidency. Sasabihin mo, I am selling the presidency of the Philippines for a minimum bid of 3 billion pesos. Oh, let's start at 3, 3.5, 3.8, ganon. Hanggang sa makuha natin ang pinakamataas na subasta. Pagkatapos, yung pera, ibigay natin sa kaban ng bayan nang sa ipamudmod natin sa mga political leaders na yumayaman bawat halalan. Kung ganyan din lang pala. But we have to have faith in our people. They will be educated as time marches on, and we shall reach the stage where the United States is today. Dumaan din ang Amerika at ang ibang mga mayamang bansa dito sa prosesong ito. Kaya lang, katungkulan natin, I'm very happy that Senator Gordon concurs with me na ibunyag natin itong mga kasalanan labag sa batas ng ating mga kasamahan ngayong hapon doon sa cabinet para kung hindi sila abogado, hindi nila masabi na hindi nila alam.
Kung magkamisan ho, ang tingin ko kasi dapat talaga diretsaan hayagan. Kaya I'm a great admirer of the gentle lady because she has always been able to say frankly what must be said. And with gusto. And that is something admirable because in our culture, we are not confrontational. And we just say, pabayaan mo na lang, talagang ganyan ang buhay, tumahimik na lang tayo, kaya walang nababago. Now, in this era of cell phones, instant communication, instant news, always ready, always first, always all the time, I think it is time that we cannot just say, nangyari na naman sa Amerika yan, tumagal yan. I'm reading a book called Presidential Courage right now, and I can see the things that are happening here happen even during the time of George Washington or during the time of Lincoln.